pleasant good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of the Legendary Show. It is our first show for the year 2024, and I am so happy to be with you this evening. I am your host, Cleone Stapleton Simmonds, Parliamentary Representative for Nevis 5. And this evening, I have a very special show lined up for you, and the theme for this evening is really conversations with Cleone. And so have not been with you for a very long time. Most of you would know that I was not well. I was ill, and as such, we're just having our first show for the year. So I am, of course, excited. I am elated, and I am happy that I am actually back with you good folks who normally tune in to the Legendary Show. I wish to take this opportunity to extend pleasant good evening to all citizens and residents of Nevis, as well as those on the sister islands, our sister island St. Kitts. I hope everyone is having a wonderful and lovely Monday evening. I also wish to say a special good evening to our friends and families here in the diaspora, to all of the listeners and viewers in the UK, in the USVI, to my Uncle Dalma, who probably is tuned in. I wish to say a pleasant good evening to you, as well as to my Uncle Vaden there in North Carolina, my brother Duggins Cleone Stapleton in New York, as well as my aunt Janice Moore there in England. So I trust and hope that everyone is enjoying themselves. We're in the lovely month of March, of course, and for me, I deem it as the best month of the year because, of course, it's my birthday month. So I just wish to say special birthday greetings to all those who are celebrating a birthday this month, this wonderful, lovely month of March. I wish you all the best on your special day. I also wish to take this opportunity to extend happy belated birthday greetings to a few persons who have already celebrated, and to my dearest sister, Miss Vernerine Stapleton. She celebrated on the 9th of March. Also, Miss Nurse Deslin Tyson White, she also celebrated on the 9th of March as well as my niece, Cleone Stapleton. So I extend happy belated birthday to them all, as well as Mr. Garlic, our local entertainer. I also extend happy belated birthday to you. We also have a few birthdays coming up in the month of March, and the list is a very long list, so I will try my best to remember those as much persons who I can. So I wish to say happy birthday when it comes to Miss Dara Cozy there in Vaughan Village. Also to Mr. Felicio Martin, my classmate. He now resides in New Jersey. Also to Miss Anya Hobson. She also will be celebrating, I believe it's on either the 21st or the 22nd of March. And so I extend happy birthday to my classmates, my school colleagues who were all born in the month of March. Also to Miss Jenny Westerman. She also celebrates in this month as well. And just before we get into the show, I would just like to take a short break, and I will be back with you because we have a very exciting show planned for this evening. Yes, and welcome back to Legendary. Just to take care of a few housekeeping matters, congratulations are in order for the Navy Sixth Form Debating Society. Of course, we all know that they were successful in the recently held Leeward Islands debating competition that was held on St. Kitts, and so we extend hearty congratulations to Team Nevis for doing such an outstanding job in really being the winners for this year's competition. I also wish to extend congratulations to a young athlete, and he is the son of Mr. Devon Clark. He is from Jessup, and I'm told, or I understand, that he did extremely well yesterday at the inter-high school championships between the Charleston Secondary School and the Gingerland Secondary School, and so we offer congratulations to that young lad. I'm told that he broke a number of records in the 100 meters, 200 meters, as well as I believe it was the 400 meters, and definitely something for all of us to be very proud about. And so we take this opportunity to congratulate himself, his team, his coaches, his parents, and everyone who had any type of influence on him, and we pray that he will continue to excel in athletics. Also, on a bit of a sad note, I wish to take this opportunity to offer sympathy greetings to Mr. Brian Clarkson. We all would have heard of the tragic news of the passing of his beloved wife, Lisa Clarkson, and so just want to offer condolences on behalf of myself, my family, on behalf of the team here at Von Radio, and we trust and hope that he and his family may find comfort in the bosom of God during this very difficult time. Whilst we are on that, I also wish to extend sympathy greetings or condolences to any family who may be grieving or mourning the loss of a loved one during this difficult time. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. So yes, first show for the year. I'm definitely happy and elated to be back. As you all know, I was not well. I was actually ill for quite some time during the months of October, November and December. I was actually had some short period where I was hospitalized at the Alexandra Hospital for some brief periods in between, and eventually I was off island for quite some time, and so I'm happy really to be back and to report that I am recovering and I am in good health, not 100% back yet, but getting there, almost 80%, and so I am indeed grateful, and I wish to express my profound gratitude to a few persons who would have been there with me throughout and who would have nursed and cared for me. For example, I must definitely mention the staff at the Alexandra Hospital, my doctors, Dr. Rokovich, who was my primary care doctor here in Nevis, and I must say that I am definitely pleased that he was able to administer care to me. He is definitely someone who gives service and care with extreme humility and professionalism, and so I was definitely grateful that I was, in his capable hands. I also wish to express my profound thanks and gratitude to my gynecologist, Dr. Julie Gill. Of course, she has been my doctor now for several years, and I'm indeed very grateful for her expertise and her professionalism and the care that she continues to give to the citizens and residents of Nevis, or St. Kitts and Nevis. Also to Dr. Lamonta, indeed is a pediatrician, my children pediatrician, and a very dear friend, and someone who always offers support to me when I am not well. So I wish to thank those doctors and the entire staff, particularly Nurse Golden, as well as Gracelyn Hanley, my cousin Vita Stapleton. I can't call all of the names, but to the entire staff at the Alexandra Hospital. I know sometimes, we often bash our healthcare service here in Nevis, but I want to say this, that from my experience, I have come to the realization that those staff, the nurses, the doctors, they do the best that they can with the limited resources that they have, and they try their best to make their patients feel comfortable. And so we must give them accolades, and I'm very grateful for the type of service, the quality of service that was offered to me at the Alexandra Hospital. Of course, healthcare is always number one priority, and so I wish to take this opportunity and use this forum this evening to really encourage the government to complete the new hospital wing. I believe that extension will provide some additional comfort, some additional service, and it would really move healthcare forward in Nevis. So from my experience, having gone through what I just went through, I think healthcare really ought to be a top priority for not only the government here in Nevis, but any government. We must be able to look after our people, and I think one way of doing so is to ensure that we can offer the best healthcare possible to our citizens. Now, in that light, I wish to also thank all those my family members, particularly my husband, my extended family, my sister-in-law, Lornette Webb, who took care of my children during my absence. I'm very grateful. And to my entire family, my entire community and constituency, all those of you who reached out to me and who offered support, who offered words of encouragement, to my friends, I am extremely grateful. I wish to extend profound gratitude to the members of parliament, the members on the government side, for reaching out to me at some point and for giving me words of encouragement and to wish me well. Also to the Madam President of the House as well as the Clerk of the House, I wish to thank you all. I know the journey has not been easy, but of course I was comforted by the fact that people were able to offer their support and to basically show their love during a very difficult time. So I wish to thank you all for that. I am indeed very grateful to all of my friends, my family. I'm not going to call name because there are so many persons to mention, and so I don't want to leave anyone out for fear that I may get into some trouble. But everyone, all of those who know you kept in regular contact with me, I am extremely grateful, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, I wish to deal with two topics this evening, and two topics of interest, and the first being the Integrity in Public Life Amendment legislation that was passed in the House. I believe it was in November of 2023. And there has been a lot of talk in the media, in social media. A number of persons have given their views. I know the Premier have spoken exhaustively about the issue and the topic, and so I just want to take some time out to really give my views, my thoughts on the whole amendment and what really was required and the procedure. So, as you all were perhaps aware, and if you weren't aware, the amendment to the Integrity in Public Life legislation was passed in, I believe it was November 23rd, 2023. And so, unfortunately, when the bill was read for a second time in the House of Assembly, I was unable to attend and participate in the debate because I was hospitalized at that particular time. Nevertheless, the bill was passed successfully, and a number of amendments were made, but for the purposes of this discussion, the most applicable amendment was that to Section 3 of the primary legislation. And so I'm just going to read for the purposes of those who may not have been familiar or may not be familiar with the amendment to the legislation. And so this ordinance, it's the Nevis Island number 4 of 2023, and it's an ordinance to amend the Integrity in Public Life Ordinance CAP 1.2 for matters related thereto and connected with, be it enacted the King Most High Majesty by with advice and consent of the island and Nevis, and by authority same as follows. And the short title of the act is: the ordinance may be cited as the Integrity in Public Life Amendment Ordinance 2023. And the amendment of section 3 states that the principal ordinance is amended in section 3.2 by inserting a new section, subsection C, immediately after section 3.2b, subsection 2. And C reads: if there is no leader of the opposition, then the Deputy Governor General may appoint a member on the advice of the member or members of the opposition, provided that where there is no member of the opposition or the members of the opposition cannot agree on a nominee, then a member will be appointed on the advice of the Premier after consultation with the members of the opposition, if any. And so that is basically the amendment in short. And what this does, just to give you a little bit of context, presently on the island of Nevis and in the House of Assembly, there is no leader of the opposition. And many of you would remember the historical impasse between myself as the elected parliamentary representative or member for Nevis 5, that is St. Thomas's constituency, as well as the member for Nevis 4, that is St. James's, the person being the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. And so because of that impasse, where I temporarily withdraw support from Dr. Daniel to be appointed as the leader of the opposition, because there were some issues, and the issues really surrounded an issue with the appointment of a senator. And I do not wish really to go into too many details about that particular issue, save and except to say that my view, the reason why my support was temporarily withdrawn, was due to the fact that I felt that the decision should have been a party decision. Of course, the other member for Nevis 4, she must command in order for anyone to be elected. And I wish to say at this point in time that anyone could have been elected as the leader of the opposition. There was no criteria within the Constitution. All that was required really was for a member to command the support of at least one other member on the opposition. Okay, that was the qualifying condition. You must be able to command the support of the other member on the opposition bench. And I really was not interested in being appointed as the leader of the opposition, so I offered my support to the other member, and that is the representative for Nevis 4, as we both were in the same party, the Nevis Reformation Party at that time. And however, there was a condition, because you know, there was no consensus between us as it relates to who should have been the nominated senator. And some persons would argue that, oh, that was a matter for the leader to choose, because the Constitution said that the leader may nominate. I strongly disagree with that view, because of course, if you're in an organization and you're working towards something, you're working towards winning an election, you were not successful, but you have to continue in your quest to perhaps win and contest another election, then I believe it really ought to be a party decision. And whilst the Constitution says that the leader may nominate, it doesn't necessarily mean that the leader may select. And I think that was somewhat construed incorrectly, because if you're in an organization, it really would not be fair for just two persons to make a decision that is going to affect the entire party, okay, or the entire body of a political organization. One would think with some level of prudency and some level of understanding, and particularly operating in this sphere of democracy that we boast so much about, and where the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis also offers some comfort in some level of democracy here. So it's not a dictatorship. So I was of the view that it really ought to be a party decision, and I said to the member at that time that I was not for the person who she was recommended. At that point in time, I really did not know of the person until perhaps about 4 days before the inauguration of Parliament, and which at that time it was the expectation of the public, not necessarily that it had to be so, but it was the expectation of the public that a leader of the opposition as well as a senator would have been presented to the public and to the people on that particular day. So I stated, and I stated clearly prior to that and even after that, that I was not in favor of the way how things were being done. I did not like the dictatorial approach. I was strongly against that. I felt that there should be some sort of consultation and discussion. So such an important discussion and decisions. Of course, some people did not agree with me for whatever their reasons, and I respect their view. Unfortunately, that whole impasse resulted in me being suspended from the Nevis Reformation Party within a period of just 6 weeks after successfully contesting an election and winning the Nevis 5 seat, and then later on being expelled. The Honorable Premier like to say "Kinny cat" from the party, and so that really was the resultant of that. Now, there are always consequences to actions, and sometimes in the heat of the moment people don't think about the consequences. They look at one side of the coin, and the side that was looked at that particular time was persons felt that they were so aggrieved that the best thing to do was to give up 50% of the elected seat that the Nevis Reformation Party had just won in the December 12th elections. Really, with the benefit of hindsight, and even without hindsight, it really didn't make any sense to me. Didn't make much sense, because there's always a bigger picture, and I believe I said this to the leader, to members, that in politics and in anything you do in life, not just politics, in public sector, in private sector, you have to always compromise. Okay, there's always a need to negotiate, to compromise, and unfortunately, despite my best efforts to compromise and to ensure that the integrity of the party was preserved, some persons took the view that it was perhaps their main goal and objective if I was no longer a part of the party, and they executed that objective. I sat back and I watched them do it. All of the stakeholders, the leader, the chairman, there were a number of letters that were passed, and this whole thing really played out in the social media. And for me, I was of the view, well, if that's how the party feel, and they feel that makes sense to them, knowing very well that it will be detrimental to them in the long run, then I have to respect their wishes. And so that was the decision that the party came to. Did not make sense to me. I don't think that it would make sense to most astute politicians. I know some politicians, and one person who I recall at that time who vocalized his opinion on it was Mr. Dwyer Astafan, and he stated that that was a wrong move. You really should have done nothing and try your best to reconcile and to really come to some sort of agreement on consensus. The NRP was not interested in that. The first thing they did was to set up a disciplinary committee, and the purpose of that committee was really to expel the other representative, that is myself, from the party. I'm not sure to what extent that decision really has helped the party in any way. I don't think that. I'm not of the view that it really has. And this integrity in public life amendment legislation has proven that it really has not. I really did not. Okay? NRP, prior to the December 12th elections, NRP was afforded the opportunity, even though there was no leader of the opposition, because I was the sole representative for the party, parliamentary or elected representative for the party at that time, and so there wasn't a leader of the opposition per se. But nevertheless, the party had certain privileges in the sense that it was still recognized as an opposition party within the House of Assembly. The government extended courtesies and afforded for myself, following from the footsteps of my predecessor, to have an office for the opposition that was budgeted for. And there were a number of benefits that the Nevis Reformation Party had at that time, which were taken away, so to speak, after the impasse. I recall on January 29th, and I have been criticized a lot. I have taken the brunt of the brunt of the abuse and the backlash from this impasse. People took sides. People were not very keen on coming to any sort of consensus, to the extent that, despite representing the Nevis Reformation Party in 2 consecutive elections and successfully defending the constituency of Nevis 5, I was ejected from the party. Okay, there were no consideration for the sacrifices that I made. There was no consideration for the fact that NRP really was the one in the person of Mr. Parry, who came to me and asked me to run. No consideration for the expenses that I endure. No consideration for my family and the impact of that on my family. When I look at my sons today, particularly my youngest son, he was probably about 16 months when I started my political journey. He's now 5 years old. So, he's always a marker for me when I look at the sacrifices that I made, being out there pounding the concrete. Many of you would have seen me going to public meetings, having my sons out there with me because my husband had to go to work. And the truth is, those same people who crucified me at that time, back in March 2020, I never saw them around the NRP. They were not there. I'm not sure if they were supporters of the NRP. I simply did not even see them, not even in the audience, not one of them. Okay, so here it is that you go through this process. You started it, you laid the foundation, you bring some traction to NRP because it really, was in a disarray, and people started to move. There was a movement. You go out there, you contest the seat, you win it. In 2020, you come back again, you do the same thing, and even by bigger numbers, by the voter turnout at that time in 2020 was 40%. It increased significantly to, I believe, a whopping 63% in 2022, which means that the people really came out and voted and supported me. And I am indeed very grateful to, I believe, the 702 persons who voted for me at that particular time. And so, there was some sort of momentum within the party. And to see a party throw all of that away without any regard, without any regard, without any consideration, without any thoughts for the natural consequence of that fallout, it is something that is just very much alarming, to say the very least, and sometimes, looking back with the benefit of hindsight, amusing to me. Sometimes, you make your bed, and at the end of the day you have to sleep in it. So the legislation here, the amendment, requires a consensus or an agreement between the members of the opposition. I really, during the time when I was ill and when I was overseas, I really was not paying too much attention to the politics. Of course, my doctors asked me to focus on my health, and my health became the number one priority. So my first awareness of this, the requirement, really came on the 16th day of February. And I wish to just give a chronological order of the events as to how things transpired from my view and to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief, because I believe that it is important to do so, because there are many who are out there criticizing. I have heard the Premier of Navy say on many occasions that because of the confusion in NRP, there cannot be an appointment of the third member to the Integrity in Public Life Commission. It is amazing that whenever there's a fallout on the opposition side, that it is deemed as confusion. But many of you would recall that that same very Premier, our esteemed Premier, he also had a falling out when he was part of a unity construct and a unity government in St. Kitts. And I believe that his experience was somewhat similar to my experience, where you're part of a team and you're being undermined, you're being segregated, so to speak, and things are not working well. And that happened in many relationships. It's nothing new to politics. It happens, all the time. It happens in businesses, in the private sector, even in families. Sometimes you have falling out. And whenever people have to take a stand, he took a stand, and he, along with 6 other elected members in that federal government construct, that coalition, they decided that they would withdraw support from then Prime Minister Harris. And at that time, and in his view, that is not confusion, okay? A whole fallout. After we were promised that, this was the best relationship that St. Kitts and Nevis has ever seen, very much to our surprise, there was a fallout. Support was withdrawn from the Prime Minister, which led to a premature federal election here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Same thing happened in NRP. Maybe not exactly the same, but it was similar. There was a falling out between the 2 elected members. And despite my best efforts to ensure that things were resolved, okay, I attended a mediation meeting. To the best of my knowledge, information, and belief, I was of the view that on the 29th of January that the impasse matter was resolved, and that there was a consensus between the member for number 4 and myself, because we both agree that we are not going to choose the same persons or the persons who we wanted as senators, that we were going to look at other persons. And I submitted 2 names. I submitted Mr. Eustace Smarty Nisbet, and as well as Mr. Desel Hamilton, and I was just awaiting for her to submit a name and for us to have a discussion. That never materialized, but what really ensued was that on the 8th of February, very much to my surprise and without any further communication from the leader of the Nevis Reformation Party, I was suspended from the party. And to me, that was the end of the relationship. That signified the end, okay? I was not permitted, according to the correspondence that was sent to me, to represent the party in any capacity. As such, I had to declare myself independent. And so we all remember that whole saga and what transpired. But it is important to note that at no point did I resign, because some people out there came on the social media to say that I resigned from the party, I abandoned the party. Some people even asked me to date if I will return to the party, and I asked them, return from what? I never left. So if in order for you to return to something, you had to leave. I never left. I was expelled, ejected Okay, despite all of my sacrifices, despite all of my work, those things were not taken into consideration and I was ejected. So how, therefore, having gone through all of that and putting that into context, can there be any sort of consensus and sensible agreement between myself and the member for number 4 as it relates to choosing a third member for the Integrity in Public Life Commission? That impasse matter has not been resolved. There was not even a discussion. Matter of fact, if I am to be very honest, I have not had a conversation face to face with the honorable member for Nevis 4 since January 29th, 2003. Okay, so I was a bit taken by surprise when I received a telephone call from my staff whilst I'm overseas stating that a letter came to my law office without any consent, without any prior consent from myself, without any notice from the honorable member. And at that point, I was not there to deal with it, and I did not want my staff to be involved. And so my instructions were, I was advised that they did not tamper with it, and so my instructions were to return it to the deliverer, the person who delivered it. And at that time, it was Mr. Patterson Fleming. And I think it was perhaps my experience with the Nevis Reformation Party, my experience with the honorable member, which I just had the foresight to know that perhaps was not written in good faith, and so therefore I should really return that letter, and I did so. Okay, I felt it was extremely disrespectful for anybody to send a letter that has nothing to do with my law firm to my private law firm and without my consent. Generally, the protocol is, and this is a protocol for all other members of parliament, including the honorable premier. Whenever the premier has to write me a letter, I would get maybe a phone call, a text, and people would generally ask, and this was the established protocol from a very long time ago: is it okay for me to send you a letter at your office relating to such and such? Okay, even the head of state, when she has to write to me as an elected parliamentarian, the question is always asked first: is it okay for me to do that? Okay, do I have your permission? But the NRP operates, at very, it's either they don't understand protocol, they don't have respect for people, or they simply just don't care. And I have said time and time again that there are times when people come to things that they just don't understand. This is the real world. Okay, we are all professionals within our own right, and there's a level of professional courtesy that I believe must be extended, and particularly to representatives within this country. That was not done, and so on that basis I said, you know what, I am not dealing with this. I can't be bothered. I have not had a conversation with these people. I don't even know why they are disturbing me. So return to deliverer. Okay, much to my surprise, on the 19th of January I received a correspondence from the Deputy Governor General, and it basically, I was CC on a correspondence that she was sending to the honorable member for Nevis 4. I do not have the permission of the Deputy Governor General to really go into the contents of the letter, save and except to say it was then that I became aware that there was an issue with the appointment of the third person to the Integrity in the Public Life Commission. Also in the letter, I was made aware that the Deputy Governor General was basically stating that she was not the proper authority to write to, because she cannot make a decision to select a person on behalf of the members of the opposition, and naturally so, because that is what the legislation stated. Okay, in order for the Deputy Governor General to be able to act on the advice of the members, there must be consensus between the members. They have to agree. So there was no agreement. There wasn't even communication communication, because as I said, I returned the letter back to the deliverer or to the sender, however you want to coin it. So I was not even aware. Nevertheless, on I believe it was on the 22nd or the 20th of January, I saw a press statement from the Honorable Member for Nevis 4, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, and her statement basically alluded to the fact that there was some collusion between either myself as the representative for Nevis 5 or the Deputy Governor General and the Premier of Nevis. And the article went on to really malign my character, my integrity, that of my staff. It didn't only stay there. I recall listening to a radio program from the hosts and executive members of the NRP and the chairman, and the discussion went on as to whether the letter was open and being accused of collusion. Now, I don't understand where this whole issue of collusion comes from, because in my mind, right, naturally one can expect, and if any prudent, sensible person understand anything about governance, and if the member and the leader of NRP understand anything about how government works, the Deputy Governor General in Nevis is the head of state. The Honorable Premier is the head of government. So how can there not be consultation and discussion and consensus between the head of state and the head of government? That is the way it is designed. The Constitution outlines it. If the Honorable Member recall, during the inauguration of Parliament on the 20th of January 2023, the Deputy Governor General gave her throne speech, and she outlined her plans for her government. So I was a bit taken aback by the post and the public maligning of both the integrity of perhaps myself as well as that as the Deputy Governor General. A lady who I have known for a very long time, and someone who I believe is of utmost and esteemed character and principle. Okay, so when people don't understand things and they cannot appreciate the role and function of the different heads in government, the different parties, the different people, the different roles, when they don't take time out to learn and to educate themselves, they go into the public domain and they create chaos, and they seek to malign the integrity of decent people here in Nevis, all because there's confusion in their brain. And I was surprised, because I even said to someone, I am surprised that a member can attack the integrity of our Deputy Governor General like that without any public outcry, without anyone asking for a recall of the statement. And that is why I want to say this evening, for me, my preference really at this point in time is really to have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with people who come to politics but who do not understand and appreciate their role. It is disheartening, it is disrespectful when people cannot understand and appreciate what it is that they are getting themselves into, when they can't appreciate the very structure of government, when they can't appreciate the functions of the different personnel in government. You must be able to understand that, because if you understood that, you would know that there ought to be some collusion, discussion, consultation between the head of state and the head of government. As it relates to me, I am an independent member of Parliament thanks to the Nevis Reformation Party. So I am free to consult and to collude with any other political party within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Okay, so that is my right. So I couldn't really understand the article or the statement. I know it was an attempt to malign my character, But in spite of that, here it is on one end of the spectrum, the member is reaching out to me, allegedly, for us to have consensus, but at the same time, she is using that opportunity to malign my character and my integrity and even that of the Deputy Governor General. There is no respect for people in this country, particularly from the Nevis Reformation Party. I have listened to talk shows where even judges, the High Court judge is maligned. His integrity and character and professionalism is questioned in the most unbecoming way in this country. And people, decent thinking people, sensible people, people who claim they're bright, and people who supposed to have all the PhD and the degrees in the world, they cannot see that there is something wrong with that. So this has now become the acceptable norm and standard in our country, where because people don't understand things, because the honorable member for number 4, she's not acquainted, she's not familiar with the constitution, with the laws, with the person, with how the government structure works, that it is okay for NRP to go out there and attack people. They have attacked me mercilessly. Doesn't really matter to me, because at the end of the day, I know what I know, and I know once people are, ignorance is a bliss. Once you are ignorant and you don't take the time out to learn, you can't really offer the people anything. Because if you are a leader, if you are elected, people elect you to lead them. So you must understand your role. You must understand the input. You must understand that it is not okay for you to go out there and malign even the very character and integrity of our esteemed Deputy Governor General. That is not acceptable. And so for me, I put out a statement and I said, listen, my position is that I have no interest in coming to any consensus or any agreement with the members of the Nevis Reformation Party, the leadership. I am the elected member for constituency number 5, the parliamentary representative. I continue to represent those persons within that constituency to the best of my ability. I continue to do so despite the level of disrespect and undermining, because the NRP not only ejected me from their party, they went within short order, and in May they had a convention. There was no mention of the elected member, that is me, for number 5. I didn't exist in that party. I didn't contribute anything. So they had a whole convention and there was no mention of Cleone Stapleton Simmonds. I didn't exist for them. Okay? Not only that, some months later, on the advice of perhaps Joseph Parry, because he was the first person who put it in the domain that the NRP needs to appoint a caretaker in that constituency. So they went ahead and appointed a caretaker. Okay, one of the candidates who contested the recent election in the constituency of Nevis, of Gingerland. And so here is that caretaker. So based on their conduct and their actions, there is no opportunity for reconciliation, for any sort of consensus. But yet still, when there is a need, they are now reaching out to myself for us to have a discussion and to have consensus and to have support. People of Nevis, I believe you're sufficiently intelligent. Help me to understand if that even makes sense. If any one of you were in my position, what would you do? What would you do? How can that make sense after all of this? And it's a series of continuing action to say, listen, we don't want you. We prefer if you go. But yet still, you find the time to come and to disturb me at a point in time when I am not well. There was no even discussion, no consideration, no inquiry about my health, nothing. But you have the gall and the nerve to come and to feel that it is okay for you to have access to me, to write to my office, to include my staff, and even to go to the extent to even put my staff in disrepute, to write to me to say what? What? I'm not interested in hearing. When I was in the party and I made every attempt, I had a mediation, I participated in the mediation. Persons like Zen Hanley was there, Jonathan Liban, Mr. Curtis Martin, and we all came to an agreement. And despite coming to an agreement, the member did a complete 180 but did not even have the decency to tell me. So you're now coming to me to say what exactly? I don't want to hear. My preference is not to hear. I don't want to know. I prefer not to know. Because whenever I try my best to come to some sort of amicable and sensible and rational reasoning with the Nevis Reformation Party, the objective is always to seek to destroy my political career. And so I have taken that stance and I have made that decision, and I come tonight in good faith to tell the public that in order to preserve myself and my integrity and my character, I cannot engage with the Nevis Reformation Party simply because they have not demonstrated, the leader has not demonstrated, the member for Nevis 4 has not demonstrated that she is genuinely willing to come to any sort of consensus in good faith. So I opted, I don't want to know, I don't want to engage. Please refrain from disturbing me. Do not send any letters to my office. I just don't want to know. As elected representatives, I believe that we can communicate best on behalf of our constituencies in the chambers of the House of Assembly. And that will be my preference at this particular point in time. Okay? I think that is the best that I can do. Because on one hand, here are people trying to malign me, destroy me. They even gone to the extent where they have totally maligned the character of my husband, Mr. Nigel Simmonds. During the time I was away, and when NRP keeps sending letters, because a second letter was sent by Mr. Patterson Fleming. He came the first time. I made a public announcement. Please refrain from sending any correspondences to my law firm. Yet still, he came a second time with a letter. Of course, he was turned away. They went on the radio on their talk show and said, well, the letter was not intended for my office, but the office of the legislator. Well, if it is that, Patterson Fleming is the delivery man, and he came to my office the week before. Well, how is it that he don't know that he's supposed to go to the office of the legislature and not my office? And then it brings into question, because I had the opportunity to visit the office of the legislature when I came back, and much to my surprise, the clerk there stated that she had a correspondence from me from the Nevis Reformation Party. And I said to her, you're not authorized to accept any mail or any correspondences that has nothing to do with the parliament and the legislator on my behalf. And so, respectfully, you too will have to return that to sender. This is the resultant and the consequence when people come to things that they don't understand, they don't have any appreciation of. Just imagine the extent of going to the office of the legislature that deals with parliament, the passing of laws, and once the laws are passed, I don't know what other function and role that particular office has other than to inform members of when there would be a parliament sitting. But to that extent, a letter from me was sent to that particular office for my attention, and the whole chaos and confusion is just bringing the integrity, the structure, the established structure of government into disarray and into disrepute, because people don't know what they're doing. I wish to take the remaining minutes that I have to raise a particular issue, and I will go back to that of my husband. My husband, naturally, because his wife is not well, and of course He's responsible for his family as a husband, because some people look like they don't even know what the role of a husband is. Can't blame them. Probably they just don't know. And he, in consideration for his wife, the state that she was in, he reached out to members of the Nevis Reformation Party, the leader, and asked her to please refrain from sending correspondences to my wife's office in her absence. He also reached out to Mr. Patterson Fleming, who all of a sudden cannot avoid my office, but there was a point in time in history when Patterson Fleming really did not want to see my office. There are times when I used to look out my office glass door to see if I could have a conversation with Patterson Fleming, and he would pass so, just like in an instant, vim, whoosh, just to try to avoid me. Okay? And that was pertaining to a claim in the magistrate court. But here it is, the same Patterson who I couldn't find when I needed him, all of a sudden constantly showing up at my office. Mr. Patterson, with greatest respect, Mr. Fleming, I am asking you to please cease and desist. Okay? You have no interest unless you're doing business with my law firm. Please do not come back. I'm just taking that time out to advise you. Do not come back. When I was looking for you, I couldn't find you. You never used to come. For God's sake, do not come back. Okay? No matter who sent you, tell them Cleone asked me not to come back to our office. Unless you have something to do with CTS Simmonds Legal Chambers or Elite Compliance and Real Estate Limited. Don't come back. Now, the interesting thing is that my husband then reached out to the chairman of the Nevis Reformation Party, Mr. Carlisle Powell, and we all know how he could back and can't bite. And so they had a private conversation, and I want to clear the air because a lot of people thought that he actually called in on the air, but he didn't. He had a private conversation with Mr. Powell, and he asked him, listen, I've called all these other people. I'm calling you in your capacity as the chairman of the Nevis Reformation Party to ask you to please, you all just refrain from sending her letters. She's not well. Stop disturbing her. And from what I'm told, my husband advised me that, you know, an argument ensued, and Mr. Powell got very aggressive, and he expressed some profanities. And as a result of that, what we call bad word, okay? It was very disrespectful. Now, my husband, he does not swear. And so he simply said to him, allegedly, you know, you're behaving like a particular adjective that I would not say on this radio. Okay? You're behaving like a particular group of people. And of course, Mr. Powell, not just behaving, he was behaving at that time, but to demonstrate that perhaps the adjective was more suitably used, he came on his Tell Me program and they had a big laugh referring to my husband using the same adjective. Okay? Calling and saying, oh, you know, and the thing came down to who was more duncer than who, and who had this and who had that. And I'm just saying, this is the chairman of the Nevis Reformation Party. There's no decorum, there's no standard, there's no level of respect for anybody. Just pure confusion, dullard, and delusion. That's what it was. And so I just want to say this evening, I'm happy to be back. I want to say to the general public, I will continue to represent the people of Nevis 5 to the best of my ability. Despite the difficulty and despite the challenges, I am here for the people. The people can contact me at any point in time. All those of you who voted for me, or once you are a member of the St. Thomas's constituency, Nevis 5, you are free to come to my office and to write to me. You're free to come to my home. Wherever you see me, you can consult with me because I represent you. But for others, access is denied because they are not people who, in my esteemed view, have conducted themselves with sufficient decency and integrity and with the level of respect that we should have from a political party in this country. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next month, the first Monday in the month, where we will have our another edition of the Legendary Show, and I will continue to use this forum to voice my concerns, to have conversations with you, and also to promote the views of ordinary legends here in this country. Thank you so much.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcast.